Welcome back. Today is the day. We're going to be putting new parts on this. We got the front diff back in, we got that all hooked up, and we have got some really cool stuff. Let's check that out. Kings for this thing. Kings front and rear. We'll be doing the fronts first, but these things are awesome. All right, so first things first, we got the wheel well all prepped, lower control arms in, front diffs back in with all the new parts. We need to wire wheel this frame. There's a few rusty spots on it, wire wheel over here, and then we have to clean the top of these strut towers. We've got these really cool brackets, I believe from Evolve or Evolution or E Squared. I'll put it up here in video. And these sit right up on top of here, and they get welded on. And then basically what that does is strengthen this strut tower or this coilover tower, so it doesn't deflect under load. This one is already slightly bent. Not much we can do about that. It's in a really awkward place, but this bracket is going to make sure that it doesn't get any more bent in the future. So first things first, let's clean this all up and get that welded on. All right, so check this out. I gotta get this guy up here, and I gotta get this edge clean, and I can't get my grinder in there. It's just too big, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a hacksaw blade, and I'm gonna wrap some sandpaper around the blade, and then I'm gonna bend that around the radius, and I'll just sand that paint off like that. Takes a little bit longer than a grinder, but that actually goes pretty quick. All right, now that we got the edges of that thing all cleaned up, I put the plate on there. We're gonna take some hardware that is the same size as the hole, that way everything fits precisely. Stick our hardware through there. We'll make sure everything is centered, and we'll go ahead and tighten everything down. All right, now this kit does not come with these bolts. You'll have to source your own bolts, but we got everything tightened down and we're ready to weld it out. All right, we got the outside welded. Now we're gonna do the plug welds. There's a bunch of holes up here that need to be filled up and help the top fuse down to the factory stuff. We'll weld that next. Okay, we've got our king shock mounted at the top just for temporary so we can make some measurements. We have some fancy trail gear bump stops, if I can get these in the light. Fancy trail gear bump stops that we're going to be mounting right here. That'll make contact with our lower control arm on our pad here. I've gone ahead and removed the factory bump stops so we can take some measurements, kind of figure out where these are going to go. But man, don't these look good? We'll go ahead, we'll get this lower bolt in here. We'll see what our measurements are with the shock fully mounted. With our upper and our lower bolt in, we're able to take some measurements, see how far things are going to collapse. It doesn't really matter where you take this measurement, as long as you can take it consistently and measure it the same both times. I've gone ahead and made a yellow mark at where I'm going to put my tape each time. So it looks like currently we're sitting at 6 7/8 at full droop. If I get my tape measure inside of the coilover, I can measure how far it can travel upwards, which looks like a total of 4 1/4 inches. With the travel of our bump stop being roughly 2 inches, that means that with 4 1/4 inches of travel, the bump stop needs to be mounted at the upper 2 inches of that 4 1/4. I'll go ahead and unbolt the bottom of this. We'll move the lower control arm up. We'll remeasure. Six 7/8. We need to go to 4 7/8. We're at 4 1/2 right now, so we need to drop it down a little bit. That is exactly 4 7/8 right there. Now that does leave a 1/4 inch that this shock could continue to travel upward if the bump stop wasn't there. We want to leave a little bit of a buffer zone. We're going to double check this later and we can make our fine adjustments then. But I feel like that's a pretty good working spot to go from to know where to set our bump stops. We've gone up 2 inches out of the 4 1/4 of available inches, and we know that this can only go up 2 more inches. So I can confidently mount this touching that pad, knowing that I have 2 more inches to go up. I'll go ahead and set these adjustment rings right in the middle. That way it gives me buffer on the top and bottom to make my final adjustment later. All right, after looking at the placement, it looks like these are actually gonna be really simple. You can buy a mounting kit from those guys, Trail Gear, All Pro. They're supposed to be mounted like this. That's why they have the cutout in them, which we'll probably end up doing on the back. But these are really long. They have a ton of extra material that we don't actually need. So I'm gonna utilize this. And I need a plate as wide as this. So all I'm gonna do is mark the plate in the width of this sleeve, and then I'm just gonna cut that off straight, and then we'll do all the final tuning from there. Since I'm gonna need 4, and they supplied 4 plates, I'm gonna go ahead and stack these together, and I'll just cut all 4 out at once. I think I want to cant it out a little bit. That way, as this A-arm comes up, A-arm is going to start to swing in a little bit. When it gets all the way up here, it'll be just past flat. This side's going to be perfect. I'll cut this out, I'll mirror this gap. That'll bring it in, that side will be flush. Mark it for back. This one is pretty much flat, with the exception of, I think I want to put a little bit of a bend in this, match the curve of the sleeve. It'll weld better that way. And I'll go ahead and mark this where I want my bend to start. I ended up putting a little bit of a bend in the other side too. That way it could sit on here at an angle like that. I decided to make some gussets for the bump stops because I wanted a little bit more surface area to weld on to make these things really last long, be strong, so they can take some serious hits. So I first started out by doing a little arts and crafts and making these gussets using CAD. For all the normies out there, that is cardboard aided design. I then take the cardboard over to some 1/4" steel and trace it out on the steel. At that point then, I cut out 4 of them, 2 for each side. There's a front and a back. And then, once all that's done, break the edges, and they're ready to go. All right, here's our gussets. One for this side and one for this side. So this is gonna get welded all the way around here, all the way down around the gusset, and the bottom side as well, all the way down along here. All right, we got that spot painted up. We got the bump stop mounted. They only give you, where did it go? They only give you one wrench, one spanner wrench with this kit. It is nice that it's got a socket head in the back. However, as you're tightening one side, it's just kind of spinning the body. It would be nice if they gave you 2 wrenches. I mean, all I did was I just stuck it on here and I took a dead blow and whacked the shit out of it, and it tensioned it up. Maybe that was the intention, I don't know. It would be kind of nice if you got 2 wrenches. Other than that, went together thoroughly well. It works, it bump stops. See how these things do in the long run. Time to do the other side. it is assembly time. We've got our upper control arms, which are also Solo Motorsports control arms, just like the lower ones. In their pictures, in their diagram, you've got two misalignment spacers, a short one and a tall one. In their pictures, the short one goes on top. And in their instructions, they say to put this stuff together using anti-seize. So that is exactly what we're gonna do. Bottom one and top one. Now we'll do our bushings for A-arm. Okay, there's that one. Actually, we're gonna do it this way. You might have noticed I don't punch this one all the way in when I go to do the sleeve, and that is intentional. It's so I can start the sleeve like that. If you push it in all the way, oftentimes it squeezes that too tight and you can't get the sleeve to start. These washers came with it. These washers are how you adjust your where your upper control arm is gonna sit. How many other companies do that, but that's pretty slick. Now, our spindle unit, we're gonna put this guy in. This is so the upper control arm, the bolt goes through the uniball and then it goes through this, holds everything tight. And I seize on this too. This kit comes with a snap ring. It goes on the top here. Let's go put these things in. Well, everything's ready. Paint's dry. Let's get our axle shaft in first. In their picture, they show basically the shims like this. 1/8 inch front and back, 1/4 inch front, 1/8 inch back. So that's exactly what we'll do. They also say make sure you use anti-seize on this bolt. Honestly, you might have a friend help you with this because this part is a little bit of a pain in the ass. There's no room to work in here. So you have to kind of go up in the engine bay and then come down here and wiggle things. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass, to be honest. Okay, last washer goes on here. Okay. And now we're gonna put this in here and then we'll tighten that. Okay, 70 foot-pounds. This one is 100 foot-pounds. All right, let's get these freaking calipers cleaned up. Well, while we were waiting for those calipers to dry, let's go ahead and take care of the ABS and the brake line. Two new calipers, several hours, and several words that I can't say on YouTube without being demonetized. And we are ready to finish this up. Let's do it. I know some people will Loctite their caliper bolts. The factory might even spec that. I like to use anti-seize. These things are always a little bit of a pain in the ass to get off. Anti-seize has always helped me with that, and I've never had a problem with them coming loose. Fun fact, if you are going to put anti-seize in your hardware, just remember your torque values are no longer going to be accurate. Alright, since these are different lower control arms, everything got moved around a little bit. We changed the spindles, so I want to show you what's going on here that I think is very important. Our brake line, which used to be attached back here, I had to bend and extend a little bit, but it now touches our coilover when we're at full turn. Not that big of a deal. We'll just take this, we'll bend it in a little bit, get it out of the way, but it's something to be aware of. When the suspension goes up and down, that's obviously going to rub up and down the coilover. We don't want that. There it is. Mostly done. I think I'm gonna have to change the camber bolts on the bottom to bring these tires out straight, but there it is. Well, that's gonna do it for us on this episode. I have a huge mess to clean up. Progress was made. The front is nearly done. If you've made it this far in the build series, there is a ton more to come. We've got rock sliders to do. We've got underbody skids to do. We've got the whole rear suspension to do. All of that. Oh, and the front bumper with a winch. So stay tuned. I promise. It's going to be worth it. If you're interested in this stuff, get down in the comments. Let me know. As always, thank you for watching. Consider subscribing. I'll catch you next time. I'm out.